Well, I'm very happy today to be with Anna Rubi. And may I call you Anna?
Yes, sure.
Very good, I'm Catherine. Within the context of the Political Film Festival in Carcassonne, to talk about the movie that we will be showing this year, which is Your Life Without Me. A very strong movie, a very touching movie, actually, with very human characters, bigger than life. And I would like to ask you first, what brought you to talk about this topic? Where did your inspiration for a movie like this come from?
I was working for a human rights organization for quite some time, 5 or 6 years. And when I started to work there, I was like a videographer, making short films, documenting cases for them. Usually this organization conducts lawsuits and does research or empowerment kind of projects. And this case was one of my first cases and the first meeting I went to only do photos. And here I met the group, Magdi, the protagonist of the film, and the group of women. And it was such a strong impact to meet a group of elderly women who are coming from absolute hopeless isolation. But instead of deciding to become the victim of their circumstances, they are like, you know what? No matter what, we're going to fight back. And we're just going to, at the end, we sue the Hungarian government, which is quite a big thing. So I haven't seen anything like that before. And even after working for this human rights organization, it was something very exceptional. So my task for the organization would have been to follow many cases, and by the side I started to work more on this case. In my free time I kept going back because I got very attached, and at some point, once I felt that the trust, there was mutual trust between the group and me, then there was a decision. We decided together that okay, we're gonna make a film, so we're gonna continue together, and I'm gonna be here like every week.
And you filmed these women for quite a number of years. And how were you able to sustain the enthusiasm maybe for the project throughout? Because they go through phases that are like tragic in some cases. And so, but they seem so genuine, and they share with you on the screen so much. It's marvelous that they sustained, you know. How did you succeed in doing this?
Well, it wasn't only me. It's especially with the human rights documentary project as such, it's always a group effort. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I was involved up until 200%, but also it was my colleagues, the lawyers from the organization, who were representing the group at court. And through them, we brought in professional help in cases we needed, like either a consultation with social workers, psychologists specialized on families who are taking care of a severely disabled child or sibling, and somehow together we just held each other up. And since we went through, well, I followed them for 7 years altogether, and the film is taking out only, I think, 5 years of that, but we just lived through moments together with the mothers, with the lawyers, and the really small film crew. So strong, like life events, that it was impossible not to think of each other as, in a way, as we are fighting for the same thing, or like we are in this together somehow, even though they are in it the most, but also the lawyers and a film crew just dedicated so much of their time that. So this is how we were like, okay, we do this together and we're gonna go on together no matter what, even though at some point it felt really, really hopeless.
Yes, and the film is also quite intimate. No, we are in the main characters' kitchens. We have conversation about aging, about we see that these women are tired. So it's quite intimate, and I would like to, and some of the characters are very fragile, also they are children. And so making a film like this, does it how do you deal with the ethical perspective with a movie that is so intimate?
Well, there have been many stages in this film. I think the first 2 years when I was around, of course, always with a camera, so they just would get used to me being around, having a camera attached always to me. But the first 2 years was really getting to know each other and build trust and kind of understand what is the kind of film we would like to make together. Most of the situations we are filming in the houses of the protagonists, it's only me alone doing everything, image, sound, whatever, and mainly rather taking either an observer perspective or a very dialogical, like always talking, what we are doing and why. And once the trust was built, and there was this understanding that it's a film. Of course, they spend most of their times in their home, so this is where we can meet. They kind of started to understand that it's not a campaign. If you want to show our entire story and want everyone to see what's going on, we have to show also the bad days, the hard moments. And I think for me the biggest success was that at some point Magdi and Ildikó, that like the protagonist and like almost protagonist characters of the film, they really got what filming is about, and sometimes they were like, you know what, I think we should record this. You know what, I have an idea how to do this.
So they got involved into the direction.
Yes. And for me that was the biggest success, because it's all I could do. I really hope that we get to this point through talking and examples and questions and mainly trust. And then when we arrived to that point, it was mainly working. And of course there were moments when I just decided to, we don't film this. I put down the camera because it's a situation which is its life is more important than film. They need real help, they need real support or a real conversation. So there were many moments that I decided not to film, and also that we decided not to use in the film as well.
Did you regret some of these decisions later on?
Well, not really. I think it's tough. It's amazing that it turned out to be a film at the end. If it turned out to have dramatic moments that it could really pull the film and the narrative together, but I didn't want to make this film no matter what, because without the support of the community and the real understanding of the representation, it's worthless. And it's the first film that was made about families that take care of severely disabled children in Hungary. And I know there is a huge community. I've already known many people, many families from not only in Budapest and then in different cities in Hungary. And there was kind of this feeling that this is either going to go good, and they feel that they are in this film, or either going to really bad, that I misrepresented them. So I felt the weight, and that was something I was much more afraid of than not making a film that would go to festivals and etc. kind of.
The theme of behind the film has a quite important it's a women crew, right? With your colleagues. And I would like to know if you think that this has impacted the way that the film was made and the film itself, perhaps, like the story that you're telling. Do you think that working with a group of women had an impact on your direction?
I think it did, but it wasn't intentional at the beginning. To tell the truth, I was asking for favors from my friends because we had no budget. And they were the ones who were like, you know what, we're going to do this story no matter what. Perhaps it's telling that they are all women, but it wasn't intentional. And also the story somehow made itself, that we had no intention of cutting out all men. There are no male characters. This is the situation. But somehow I think understanding really what is it like, what is invisible work is like, it's something we are all familiar with as the women. So definitely, I think the nuances and the highlights, female creators, they had just much more sensibility and understanding of that, that's for sure.
I think it's a feminist movie. Do you think it is?
Yeah, it definitely is, I think. But it's also somehow, I mean, it's hard not to be a feminist. This is somehow the way to go to address problems, to address the roles. And it's, I think it's important not to confuse feminism with I don't know, hating men or something like that, because it's really not the same. But our societal structure needs to change. And I often say that in these families, the fathers, they leave early on the family when they learn, when they realize what is it like to take care of a severely disabled child. But these men are really not happy who leave. I somehow followed up on the story of several fathers who didn't feel like being in a film. But I felt like this is kind of the ethical way to know what's going on there. But it's not a happy life, it's not a happy choice, it's just somehow, especially in their times. So these men now, they are in their 60s, 70s, they had really no tools for coping with the situation as such. And they ran because they didn't know how to stay. And also because of that was so unbearable with the lack of support system. So somehow I kind of blame them, but also not to blame them in a way, because and no one is coming out of a situation as this without proper state support as a happy person. And even for the younger families, like the concept of family now is changing, even in Hungary, big thing. And the men are more tend to stay at home and take care of the children. So there are more young fathers staying at home and deciding to do this together with the mom. But it just ravages the marriage. It ravages any human relationship when every day, 7-Eleven, all you do, you work basically, you do care work. Care work that the state is supposed to do by law, and we pay all our taxes. So the state is obliged to do this. So if there is someone to blame for this, is definitely state corruption in Hungary.
So your film can be seen either as a personal story of these women that we follow as they take care for their entire life of their disabled children, but it's also, as you mentioned, like a social critique, of the system or the way things are in Hungary currently. But do you think that this is primarily an Hungarian movie, or it's a movie that really is just current? It's relevant to talk about these things because the lack of funding, the lack of access to social care is a widening question, preoccupations. So is it an Hungarian movie? Or it's much wider than that?
Of course, I hope to think it's much wider, but definitely Hungary is a very extreme example. It's something that other countries should learn how not to do things, kind of in a way. But it's a much more wider thing. Of course, the film is also talking about the strength of community. That when you come together, how much more better you can advocate for yourself. How much better is it to rely on each other. But it's also a situation that I think cutting budget from these sectors that should be providing a safety network, let's call it that way, like support, caring for elderly people, caring for people with special needs, with people living with disability, etc. It's just really such a bad strategy. Economically first, because if the family is the one who is taking care of the person in the family who needs house care, they cannot work more, they pay less taxes. It's all down in the data. It's visible in GDP. It would be visible in Hungarian GDP if all these families could do proper work. And secondly, I think it's just completely against of the concept of it's a human rights violation, that you cannot afford yourself to be vulnerable, to be in a case of needing care. If we cannot afford this, then what is this very idea of, let's say, modern living?
Yeah. I would like to ask you, maybe I have two questions. I'd like to ask you first, if you think your movie will have an impact on the many groups of women that are actually fighting for the rights to social care. I mean, for actually the recognition of unpaid care, labor, which is by all means mostly still done by women. Yes. So how do you think your film can support movements that are trying to get recognition for this work, unpaid work?
Well, what I see the best or the most, how it turned out to be in Hungary. Mm-hmm. And when the film premiered, I was very worried since the press, basically, it's owned by the government in Hungary, and this film was about suing the government. But I was very pleasantly surprised that even the propaganda press decided that people risked their jobs to write articles about the film, and it was full house. Suddenly, all this crowd of women appeared from somewhere, and I think the situation of this invisible work of home care, unpaid home caring and care work done by women, it's never been that much talked about in press all over the country. And now it's really became part of the political debate at the moment. So, and I know that several places in the countryside, by municipalities, they were like, okay, perhaps if the state does not do it, we try to do it ourselves, these care homes, and try to somehow pool funds. So it really, I think, films can change. It's a lot of work to make it go to many places, but it can. And locally, I think something started in Hungary. Of course, it has its own limits, but already that is part of the public narrative, public discussion. I think it's a big chunk.
Congratulations for that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Exactly. And will this film impact on your next projects, perhaps, or?
Well, we'll see. Hopefully, but so also the situation in Hungary that the film fund it's non-existent basically. So I'm already researching my following film, but it's a big question mark how this will go because it's really hard to get a film going without an existing national film fund. But it's just like this. I was working on this film for 7 years, so I'm like, it's little by little. I keep going and we see where we get.
Thank you very much, Anna, and we can't wait to see your next project.
Thank you for the interview.